I'm a big believer that nothing really great is accomplished as an individual, and that can apply to a team at a company. It can apply to your family, the people that you support. I really think nothing can be done alone. If you're a startup founder and you're not broke, you're probably not trying hard enough, or in some cases, you just come from a lot of money. You see a lot of podcasts or people, influencers, if you will, saying like, I can get you, mailbox money or 12% returns without you ever having to pick up the phone or do this or do that. The reality is that real estate investing is very, very difficult. It's very nuanced. It's very time intensive. That is going to be improved by technology, but it's not going to totally change. And I think that anyone who's telling you differently is probably oversimplifying a couple of items.
Hello and welcome back to the Masters of Real Estate. Today we are going to learn from Nick Marino. Nick, how's it going?
It is going great, Nick. It's good to see a fellow Nick, and thank you for having me. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, likewise. I don't think there are enough Nicks in the world, so we can to spread the joy. So, Nick, how do you introduce yourself these days?
On the professional side, I'm the Chief Business Development Officer at Nhimble, who was the company that acquired the startup that I founded called Truelive. And I'm also working on a couple different real estate related, you could call side hustles as well.
Absolutely. I will learn a lot more, and I'm sure listeners are really curious to learn what you're doing at Nimble. But before that, they are more curious to learn about who you are. So, Nick Marino, what spirit animal or bird best describes you?
Spirit animal or bird? I'm gonna have to go with a wolf, and the reason that I say that is a lot of people will say something like tiger or certain more solitary animals, and I am definitely a pack animal. So I like to be. I love the way that wolves work in teams to accomplish the same goal, and they're just pretty cool as well.
Is that kind of the main operating principle of your life, like work in a pack and accomplish a tough goal?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that nothing really great is accomplished as an individual, and that can apply to a team at a company. It can apply to your family, the people that you support that come around you, and I really think nothing can be done alone.
Absolutely, nothing can be done alone. Indeed, I mean, all the great things were built by massive teams of people. But so, if you had to put a key metric, Nick, that summarizes your entire wolf pack life so far, what would you say that is?
The key metric I would to stick with this theme is the number of relationships that I have built over my career. I've worked on the real estate space, couple $1 billion worth of real estate developments and transactions in different companies. And I think it's about, again, the people that work on those developments, those transactions, et cetera, that really make a huge difference.
Well, seems like you've influenced over $2 billion in real estate transactions, but you really measure yourself by the level and quality of the relationships you've built with people. But let's go back all the way to the start when you didn't have such an amazing career so far, all the way back to zero. When you look back at the past, what's been your broad trajectory so far?
I started my career actually outside of real estate. So I was in investment banking in New York and in a financial technology company in San Francisco. And it wasn't until really my mid-20s that I started getting super interested in the real estate space. And it was something that, having come from finance, I just kind of fell in love with really quickly and realized that it made me much more excited than the pure play finance world, if you will. And now there's obviously financial aspects of real estate, but I think that the previous career before real estate really gave a good kind of foundation from a financial technical perspective that helps me in my career to this day for sure.
And what were the inflection points in your life that led you to real estate?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was working in San Francisco and I realized my company was having some struggles. And I realized one day, I don't want to do finance for the rest of my life, for my career. It was a great job. I liked the people I worked with. I just felt like I wanted to do something that I was more passionate about. And that's really when I decided to come down to LA to get my MBA with a focus in real estate and really start from there, and haven't looked back since.
I haven't looked back since, indeed. And your education in real estate is kind of the reason we're doing this podcast in the first place. Masters of Real Estate is an homage to me learning from the real masters in real estate, because I never really got a formal education in real estate. But Nick, when you think about your own education through your entire career journey, what advice did you absorb from the mentors and parental figures in your life to be where you are today?
I think number one is to work hard, stay disciplined. That applies to everything in life. I think the second and more real estate specific one is play the long game. That's a mentor and great figure of mine, a guy named Wayne Rakovich, who sadly passed away recently, was in the real estate business in Los Angeles for 50 years, and he was an incredible cowboy with a long term vision that other people just didn't have, and so he could look at a site or a building and say, "Hey, I believe in." He's a huge builder of the Playa Vista area in Los Angeles. Took an old decrepit airplane hangar, the Howard Hughes airplane hangar, and saw it for something that had a ton of value and it could be developed into something super special when nobody else was looking at it. And so you need to play the long game. It's not a business, where you can create a social media platform and become a multimillionaire overnight. It is a long, real estate investing is a long and arduous business.
It is a long game indeed, absolutely. And what has been your best year professionally so far?
Best is an interesting question. I would say that the most exciting year was 2021. That was the year that we officially launched Truelive, and really were seeing so much happening in the market, and we knew we had something that was really special, and that was going to make a difference. And that kind of goes back to my previous point. Building out a real estate tech company even does not happen quickly. And so, that was 2021 was a really exciting, really new year, moving at a mile a minute. But the reality was with Truelive and now with Nhimble, which we're going to get into, it takes a long time to build really great products that actually make a difference in real estate. And that's just a reality out of the nature of the real estate business that I think we've learned.
Yeah, I completely agree. And real estate has been around for so long that improving it does take a lot of time and patience, and you have to play the long game. It seems like you've been, launched your own company in 2021, and now you've sold it to Nimble. I want to get into that. But before that, I want to understand. Do you come from money, Nick, or have you ever been broke?
I come from a good family. I was not in a space where, growing up, we were wondering about money. My father came from a poorer family, and he worked his way to become a surgeon. So kind of a great success story there. But I certainly don't come from a trust fund type of background of any kind. And I have been, one of my biggest things that I've learned is, like, if you're a startup founder and you're not broke, you're probably not trying hard enough, or in some cases you just come from a lot of money. So personally, yes, I've definitely felt and been broke. And you're pouring so much into a business to start it, you really shouldn't have excess non-broke capital when you're starting a company.
Completely agreed. And I've been in the same place as well. So, Nick, what advice do you have for people who are struggling right now?
I would say stick through it and plan well. It will take longer than you think. It's almost always a fact that anything, really in life, but in real estate too, is like deals take longer, fundraising takes longer, stabilization for an actual property takes longer, development takes longer, it goes over budget. Really, whatever it is, it's like a lot of things just take longer. So planning ahead for that is really important.
Take through it. It will take longer than it takes. Couldn't agree more. The projects I plan for, I always assume they're going to take 2, 3, 4 times longer than I think they will.
And then even when you make that assumption, a lot of times it takes twice as long as that. And it's kind of a funny, it just like, it's the way the universe works. And I'm not saying, like, I don't consider myself a negative person, and I'm not going to say, like, plan for the worst. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and I'm not a believer in that. But if you're struggling and going through a startup or a new real estate business, keep pressing at it. I'm still going through that in a lot of ways, right? Keep just grinding at it and don't get discouraged by setbacks, because those are natural.
So it seems like a few months ago you were running your own company and now you sold it to Nimble. How are you still going through it? Like, what's going on in your life these days?
Yeah, I think running Truelive, was a fantastic experience. But because I mentioned, hey, we started working on the company in 2019, 2020. We didn't sell until really January of this year. But that, in the grand scheme of things, I talked a lot about how long it takes to do things. That's really not that long. And so Truelive was still, and still is, as part of Nhimble, a newer technology and a newer business. And I think, everything is reflecting in that, whether it's the revenue, the product itself, the amount of services. I think it's a work in progress. That doesn't mean it's not great. It just means the future and what we envision now as part of Nhimble for that to grow into is really much bigger than it is today. So it's one of those things, like, you're never stop building. So in a lot of ways, like I said, I feel like I'm still in that grind.
And today, what role does TrueLive and now Nimble play in helping customers succeed in the real estate industry?
Nhimble and Truelive, which has been rebranded Honeycomb, act as a technology service provider for anyone looking to acquire, manage, and or dispose of residential real estate. So that's the first answer. The background is that Truelive itself was really more of a technology company, a software company, that we were selling software to, whether it was single family rental. We can talk about the asset classes: single family rental, multifamily, investors, owner operators, etc., as a technology service. Where we've come with Nhimble that has really changed is Nhimble can now offer that technology service, but also offer brokerage, asset management, leasing. We don't do property management. We could have a whole other podcast about property management, but other disposition services, acquisitions as a service, etc., that is attached and empowered by the technology. So you can still use the Truelive Honeycomb technology, but you can also, as an investor who may not have a large portfolio or may not have, quote unquote, boots on the ground in Nashville, Tennessee, Nhimble is able to offer those services to those people as a result.
It seems like these two brands are combining into Honeycomb. So now, when you explain Honeycomb to a target customer, how do you explain the key pain points that Honeycomb will help them solve in their real estate journey?
Yeah, I think it's really three things, right? It's accuracy, it's speed, and it's consistency. So to put it really simply, accuracy meaning having the best data available at your fingertips, being able to accurately value either your prospective properties that you're looking to acquire or your existing portfolio, is super important. Speed, which is just being able to do that same thing quickly, and powered by a technology that doesn't require you to download 17 different Excel sheets and piece things together when you just looking to see how your portfolio is performing. And then consistency. So being able to have everything in one place and really being able to, rely on the combination of Nhimble and Truelive Honeycomb to come somewhere and say, I know what I'm getting. I know that I can look at everything apples to apples. And moreover, that Nhimble has created all of these relationships with home builders, single family rental operators, managers, leasing professionals, what have you, that make it really easy for you to plug in and have a consistent professional relationship for anything that you need done.
So, how would you define your target customer persona?
The target customer persona is somebody looking to acquire more than one investment property, which is to say that, traditionally, Truelive had worked with a lot of more institutional players. Nhimble does that as well, works with some of the biggest single family rental and private equity companies in the country, or in the world for that matter. But our target customer long term is really anybody who wants to, own and invest in a substantial real estate portfolio. And that would be, again, more than one. I think if the technology and the platform are broad and work well enough, it shouldn't be just that an institution gets to use it and gets to access it. It should really be available to those looking to get started in real estate, or grow a portfolio themselves, or with a group of partners, friends, you name it.
It seems like if you're listening to this and you're buying, more than one investment properties, you should really check out Honeycomb to make sure you have the most accurate, the most quick, and the most consistent information available to you to make key decisions. Nick, what are the biggest misconceptions that investors have about investing in investment properties?
I think that it's easy. You see a lot of podcasts or people, influencers, if you will, saying like, I can get you, mailbox money or 12% returns without you ever having to pick up the phone or do this or do that. The reality is, I just think that real estate investing is very, very difficult. It's very nuanced. It's very time intensive, and it is going to be improved. That is going to be improved by technology, but it's not going to totally change. And I think that anyone who's telling you differently is probably oversimplifying a couple of items.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there is no anybody who's selling you passive investments in real estate is lying. You're either going to pay with your time or your money, but all real estate investments are active. There is takes a lot of time, and you have to actively manage them. And mailbox money is also a myth for most cases. Yes, I'm sure some people are generating real mailbox money, but most of the cash flow you generate from a property is usually reserved for future repairs and additions. So
Absolutely. And if you are generating true mailbox money, you've most likely owned that property for 20, 30 years, which goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I have certain mentors and people that I know who have great, great cash flowing portfolios, and they've long since, paid down and done repairs and done things that just take a lot of work to get there.
And what do you think like separates Honeycomb from 99% of the rest of the market?
Honeycomb does co-invest on certain deals, which we can talk a little bit about when we talk about real estate portfolios. But I think that Honeycomb is a service provider, is what's different. A lot of technology companies, are just software that they're trying to sell to existing operators. We're selling both a partial operating arm as well as a software. And two is, on the other side of the non-technology is like funds or companies that do the entire stack and will say to us, hey, we already have an internal technology, and we're a full institutional level or family office level fund that owns and operates real estate ourselves. If that makes sense. So Honeycomb is really positioned well into the middle of that to say, hey, we can help you with service offerings, but we can also provide you the best in class technology, which I truly do believe is best in class.
Absolutely. And how does Honeycomb generate revenue? How does Honeycomb monetize this?
Yeah, so we have a subscription model, and we also have an acquisition and asset management fee model for Honeycomb. Honeycomb is also a driver of business for the services side to Nhimble, which again, these companies are interconnected. So Nhimble can say, you might log on to Honeycomb and say, hey, I'm interested in buying this few new build home investment property in Dallas. And Nhimble can actually provide the service, meaning have a person go out there and broker the transaction or walk the property, or the things that are required still in this real estate space. And someday will change a bit, but right now it still does require some manual involvement. So Honeycomb fuels a lot of the business for Nhimble in that sense too.
And for somebody interested in learning, how successful you've been, how do you explain them how you've grown, or how Honeycomb has grown so far?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of providing good services. I don't know if there's a magic trick to it. It's being upfront. I think a lot of these technology providers probably overpromise on what they're able to do, and we can talk about some of the AI stuff. But you sit there and it's like it's all a sales machine. And once you're signed on and you have this great technology, you realize it might not be as useful as you may have thought. So I think from Honeycomb and Nhimble's perspective, we just position it as, we want to do a really great job at what we do well. And we're not going to be right now selling you this vision that everything's going to be perfectly easy, like we were talking about before. I can just deliver you mailbox money. But the things that that we're doing, we're going to do them really well, and our technology is going to power that service.
Sounds incredible. And what was your aha moment of scale? Like, what was your, inflection point in this journey of building this amazing real estate platform to help investors? What was your aha moment?
I mean, I can go back to even the Truelive days when we realized we were working with a group who I won't name, but a group that we sat down in a boardroom with them and kind of went through the platform, and they just looked at us and said, "This is exactly what we've been looking for, and what we've been hoping for." And they really didn't have much feedback in terms of they told, again, I come from a real estate background, so I had started this Truelive, the technology company. They said, this is built like a real estate investor should have like built it. And I was like, well, yeah, that was the whole idea, rather than what you see a lot, which is a technology person creating a technology for real estate. And obviously credit to my partners and the people who have built this incredible technology. But secondly, I think I want to have another aha moment. I will add, we're a growing company. We have great partners. We have great customers. But I think in a few years, we want to have an aha moment where it's like, oh, we're nearly a household name in the real estate business. We don't have to go and I don't have to come here and describe to you what Nhimble is or what Honeycomb is. It's just like, hey, this is the CEO of Nhimble and Honeycomb, and people will know what that means. At least people maybe who listen to the Masters of Real Estate podcast, and maybe not somebody who knows nothing about real estate. It still might be a little lost on them, but we'll get there.
We'd love to have you back when you become a household name. Talking about names, Nick, what is the story behind you naming your company TrueLive? The founders of Nhimble naming their company Nhimble, and now you all naming this new company slash product Honeycomb.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the behind Truelive, I really wanted to create something that represented both real estate and technology. And to me, I was really focused on the data piece of the business. And so the word true, which of course has an E on the end of it and has since been removed, was really the thought process, like, what is the source of truth? Where is the data that's powering this platform? And then live, which again, of course, had an E on the end of it originally, was the real estate side. And so it was kind of thinking about these, you're combining those two pieces, data, technology, and real estate, into a company. And it just kind of went from there. And that was one of the original ideas that I'd had. Nhimble is back to, I could have answered your question around the spirit animal. And in a similar sense to wolves, to my answer of wolves, is bees. Nhimble, I think, plays off of the word nimble. It has an H in it, but it plays off the word nimble, and its logo is actually a bee. And the reason that they built it around that was bees are, worker bee. It's a term, right? Their team members, they help connect the animal kingdom, pollinate different flowers and plants all around the world. Our agricultural system depends on this. Other animals depend on this. And they're kind of the lifeblood of an entire system. And that really represented the service that Nhimble was trying to build. And Honeycomb is obviously related to the bee there. And that, when you think about a computer system or a technology, you kind of can see that honeycomb almost representing, the I think they're hexagons, the squares of a honeycomb. That's the membrane that holds the beehive together, if you will, which is
That's
the
incredible.
technology.
So it seems like the original thesis was we want to help people live in their truest sense, but we want to also have this sense of community and agility like bees, and then bringing it all together is the home of bees, the honeycomb. Like, it's quite
Exactly.
fascinating.
Exactly. So it's technology, business, team related, right? Real estate and business all connected.
But what's your number one aspiration for Honeycomb and Nimble for the next 12 months?
My original joke was going to be that the Fed decreases interest rates, but in all seriousness, I think that the number one aspiration is to really become ingrained in a large number of clients. So for certain reasons, I can't tell you how many how many partners we work with today, but I believe we can 5 to 10, if not more, X that number of partners. And again, that includes everybody from smaller players who might want to invest in a couple homes, a couple apartment buildings, all the way up to the biggest institutions in the country. Um, and for the biggest institutions of the country, it's not just, okay, we can only work with one of them, but it's, hey, we're powering a lot of this whole industry, which is really important to us to be able to be that honeycomb that powers the industry.
And in your perspective, what's the biggest obstacle to help to 5xing or 10xing in the next 12 months?
To be honest, I think it's a degree of just familiarization from different players. We're very confident in the technology itself. I think that, like always, and this has been a challenge since I've truly entered the prop tech, and I've had it even before while in real estate. People in real estate don't like to adopt technology. It is a very old school industry. A lot of people are stuck in their ways. And I think the biggest challenge is making sure people get familiar with, and you could call it marketing, you could call it PR, whatever you want to call it. People get familiar with Honeycomb, understanding what it is, understanding how the value proposition makes sense. And I know we can execute from there. So when somebody gives you the chance and says, yeah, I'm interested in doing this, I absolutely know we can execute. It's the fact that a lot of the times you're getting, oh, this is just another technology provider that, is just gonna take up my time or what have you.
And so, for somebody interested in getting help and partnering with Honeycomb, how should they reach out to you and your team?
It is actually N Marino at Nhimble.com. I'm happy to reach out. You post on our LinkedIn, message us on LinkedIn. There is a website attachment form. We do regular outreach both on LinkedIn and different social media posts. Like I said, I love to be reached out to directly with any questions at all.
It seems like you have a really curious last name, Marino. That sounds very familiar. Is there a story behind that as well?
Actually, my middle name, people always say, I like the quarterback when I ask. My middle name is Dan. Which is interesting because I grew up in New England, and this was I was obviously born well before the Patriots and Dolphins people think of as rivals, but when I was a kid, a really young kid at least, this was well before the Tom Brady era, and so New England, it was like, oh well, we might as well follow some other teams. And my dad, who was based in New England, was like, he really liked Dan Marino, so that would never happen today because the Patriots over the past 25 years have become because of Tom Brady, right? But other than that, it is a funny story. So he wanted to name me Dan, just Dan, my first name, and my mom said, let's cool the jets there.
So, Nick, I'd love to ask you some rapid fire questions so you can
Yeah, absolutely.
talk about some stuff. So, what's your personal real estate portfolio like?
Yeah, my personal real estate portfolio is relatively small. Really just includes some home, but I have through ownership with Nhimble, who invests directly in real estate, as well as a family office that I've partnered with, invested in multifamily self storage deal, as well as as single family rental primarily.
And if that same family office calls you again and says, Nick, we just have 100 million in excess liquidity, and we want to invest it only in real estate, how would you invest it?
I'm an expert and most familiar in the single family and smaller multifamily space. So a large chunk of it would go to that. Let's call that 75%. I really believe in the build to rent product at the moment, which is the single family, build to rent communities, especially in great markets like you see across the Southeast and some of the mountain states and the Midwest, I would say. So that's it. One, and then the two other industries that are just, I think, hot and have a lot of room to run is self storage. Small self storage properties are really great, and then data centers. And that's not the most original thing to say right now, but data centers are on fire. And I actually just read a great book called Chip War, which came out, I think, last year. I'm not sure if you've read it, but all about the advent of the silicon chip and how you have these different. We have a lot of production of chips moving to the United States, and I just think the data centers aren't going anywhere for any time soon. And if anything, the amount of data that the United States is consuming is increasing exponentially. So I'm just a big believer in that asset class.
Yeah, I am bullish on single family as well. Build for rent, for somebody who hasn't heard of before, is building a community of single family homes that you exclusively rent out. Self storage is self explanatory, and most people are curious why data centers are counted in real estate and not technology. But if you really think about it, you are digitally storing all your data somewhere, and you're going to pay rent for it on it for a long time, whether you pay to a music subscription service or directly to for somebody to host your files, your photos, or your emails. So yeah, data centers is
The cloud, the quote unquote cloud, was one of the best marketing tools of all time, because there is no cloud. It's a bunch of data storage facilities in Nevada and all around the country that are either owned or leased by Amazon and Google and then IBM and these other companies. It's funny.
what's the biggest mistake you see your peers making in the real estate industry?
I mentioned earlier not having the long term mentality, but not sticking with an initial thesis and playing the longer game. So real estate is not a job, or if you're trying to do it where you can just come in and like try it out for a year. You might say, "Hey, I work at Google," and you could just go and move over to work at Facebook theoretically, right? And it's not really how it works in real estate, because you're trying to build, and that's something that having bounced around a good amount, I'm really focused on for the long term. Before I started Truelive, I want to work and operate with a great team of the same people for a long time.
And Nick, if your loved ones ever agree to be mentored by you, what's the most important skill you would teach them?
I think discipline is one of the number one things and it's something I'm always working on. Is everything from waking up at the early in the morning to get to work, to staying focused while you're at work, to if you have a project or a task to do, to really focusing on it and doing it so that you can move on to the next thing, rather than worrying or procrastinating or what have you. It's like, this can be done, and let's do it. And then the second, I'm going to add a second, even though you didn't ask, is positive attitude. I'm a huge believer in, like, you got to approach everything with a positive attitude. I think people who don't have a positive attitude, doesn't even have to be overtly negative, but if you don't have an actively positive outlook, it's going to start to weigh on you. So really try to approach life like that.
Stay positive. There is no easy way to make money in real estate, but if you stick in it for the long term, you'll figure something out. That was Nick Marino, a wolf who's found a pack of bees and they're running as fast as possible to help you solve your biggest problems in helping buy investment properties. If you want to reach out to Nick, send him an email at nmarino@nhimble.com or message Nhimble on LinkedIn. I'll drop the links in the description. If you want to talk about real estate anytime, shoot me a note on nick@home.llc. Thanks, everyone.